We've got a build project today. We're going to be building out a fun little mini quiz application, something similar to Kahoot, but way simpler. No user authentication, no login, but something where we can kind of host out questions and students can log in and answer those quiz questions. So this is all going to be powered by Amazon Q Developer because I'm going to be coding in a language that I am not super familiar with. So we'll be using Amazon Q Developer, the CLI, and the VS Code extension. And of course, I've got to give a shout out to the AWS team for sponsoring this video. Let's jump into it. Let's get started here. We've got the Amazon Q Assistant homepage, and I really just want to jump into things because I want to start coding with this. So we're looking at the Amazon Q Developer. We can see there's a bunch of different ways to work with this. I think we're going to do VS Code and the command line. So let's check this out. So to do the install, let's just get that done really quickly. Okay, let's open that up and see what happens. We can also see some instructions here, right? So we can verify it, double click the DMG and drag the app into the application folder. In the application folder, double click the GUI, enable the shell integration. So it's going to actually do the install and then authenticate. Let's do the install. I'm going to hit enable for the accessibility. Perfect. And then it's jumping me back in. So I'm going to sign in with my builder ID. Of course, if you don't already have one, make sure to sign in and create an ID. It's completely free for you to use. Cool. So we've got this warning here. We're saying that we're linking our Amazon Q Developer to the command line tool. So we're just syncing up our accounts. And now we should be able to see, let's see if this is processing. We might need to run this again. Let's do sign in, copy to clipboard. So I'm going to go to this link and go ahead and sign in again. Let's see if it's going to take me. So that's the matching code that we've got there. I'm going to do confirm. Let's allow access one more time. There we go. And we should be set up with this now. So let's open up the terminal. And ideally, if we do Q, there we go. We've got our Amazon Q Developer set up. Nice big terminal window. I know the terminal can be very scary for different folks, but we're going to make it super simple in this video. And of course, we'll be working through VS Code as well as we're going through it. This is one of the ways to interact with Amazon Q. If you use other CLI tools, it should be fairly similar. Let's see what we've got in the help. A few different things. We can clear conversations, compact to summarize. That's awesome. We know that we can work with MCPs, but I don't think we'll have enough time to do that. We've got a model option, which is great. And then a few other things, some existing prompts that we have inside here. So this is cool. Let's see what models we have access to. And it looks like Sonnet 4, which is great, 3.7 and 3.5. I hope they continue to add additional models in here because we can use them to switch around and change things around. So just like I mentioned in the beginning, we're going to make a quiz style application, something where teachers can create different questions and then students can all log in at the same time to work on these questions, and you'll see a leaderboard. And maybe we'll get that far with the leaderboard, but I definitely want to get some sort of live multiplayer element getting rolling from the questions that are generated. I'm primarily a Salesforce developer, so everything is contained inside of that ecosystem. But when I want to build more public-facing websites and applications, I often turn to other programming languages. So these AI as coding assistants work really great for me being able to express what I want to get created on the creative side and on the development side, but not knowing how to specifically make it in another language. So we're going to work through what I think we should be creating and have AI and Amazon Q Developer really help guide me through the process of how to create this in other languages, right? Let's go ahead and close this out and head over to VS Code. And I'm going to open up the terminal inside of there as well. So now we're back in our main branch. And then let's go to Documents. Let's see if we've got a Projects. And then CD there, mkdir, and we're going to call this Amazon-Q, right? So just creating that folder in there just for all of these applications. Cool. So from here, I want to start figuring out how to build out this application. And I don't really know how. So I'm going to ask Amazon Q how to build this out the best way for this proof of concept. And what I'll do here is use some dictation to really help express what I want built out in natural language, and then use that to then formulate a PRD, a project requirements document, or an implementation game plan is what I often call it when I use tools like this. I want to build out a simple multiplayer quiz application, something where teachers can create questions, and then those questions can be shared to users, and they will work through them in a multiplayer fashion. So it'll be a live style of game that students can log in through a URL, see the questions, answer them, and then there will be live updates after they have completed the questions or the teacher has selected that the timer is up. Help me brainstorm how to build out this application and the best tech stack for this type of simple app. Remember, this is a proof of concept, so we don't need to build anything fancy or crazy just yet. And there my prompt goes. I'm just going to send this off so that we can talk through the different things that are coming through here. And you can already see that it's responding very quickly and all of the data is flowing through. So we've even got schemas and our database table. So it's responding back pretty well with this info. And now my job will be to read over this and work through any specific things that I think are incorrect or even dive into them deeper, right? So if I've never heard of socket.io, I can ask the question, what is socket.io, right? This is a great way of learning different things inside of programming and other languages as they are coming through. So that was an example. It's once used React, and I've heard of that before. Socket.io, which I've also heard of, Tailwind CSS, Node and Express, Socket and SQLite, right? So this is a great basic structure, and we even got simple architecture inside of here. So we've got our phase 1 implementation, very simple process that we have in here. And then we've got real-time communication. So this is just explaining what socket.io is and how to use it. One thing I'll say here is that there should be no authentication for the teachers or the users in this proof of concept. We should be able to just create them and potentially for the students that join, put a name or identifier. But other than that, there should be no login requirements, right? So we're coming through, dropping these additional requirements in here. And I'm just building out how I think or what I feel the MVP of this application should look like. And it's going ahead, putting a decent structure inside of here. So now I'm going to say, create a comprehensive PRD or implementation game plan, something that a junior developer could follow that builds out this application. Remember to keep it very simple. You don't need to write all of the code and just use code snippets for the most important pieces. So the reason I said a few of these things in here, like using a junior developer, because you can treat the AI at this point as a junior developer, right? So we want to have this implementation plan that they can follow through as they are creating it. And then we're going to ask them to actually go through and generate all of this stuff. I don't think we specified it earlier because they were talking about some alternatives, but yeah, let's use React, Socket.io, Node.js, Express, SQLite, right? So it's using the simplest version of this application. So now I'm actually having it generate the PRD, and I don't remember if I told it to create the document in the folder. Let's see if it's smart enough to actually do that. I don't think so though, because it is doing it inside of here. So let's see if we can cancel this. And I'm going to go up, make this document I'm going to say create this document in the current folder. So cool. It'll hopefully go through all of that stuff again, but actually creating the document inside of the current working directory. And while that is going on, we're waiting for the AIs to respond. we can take a look at some of the documentation that exists for Amazon Q Developer. When we are in this CLI mode, we have a few different commands that we can work with, and these are very handy. So saving and loading our existing chat conversations or the state that they're in, that's very handy. If we need to kind of bring things down, maybe go to another computer and then load it back up again. So that's super nice. And then we can also have some different prompts in here. I think these are custom prompts that we can use. We can see our usage. And of course, there's the help, there's a model. Hopefully they're adding additional models, especially as new ones get created. And we've also got clearing out the chat history. Whenever I like to start new features, I end up clearing out the chat history so that the context doesn't get overloaded or mixed up with some of the existing things that are in there. We've also got something similar in reset, tools that we can work with. And I think we saw that there was also an MCP one, which hopefully if we work with this more in the future, we can show off some of these existing tools. There are also some command references. So when we're starting it up for the first time, we can see those arguments that we can use. If we just use the Q command, it'll default to Q chat. And this is just the interface that we're working with now. Something I found really cool was this -R or -- resume, which we can resume our previous conversations that were happening inside of that directory. Okay, this looks like it has finished up, and now we have an option to either trust the actions that it wants to do. It wants to create this document here. Oh, it looks pretty long actually. Or we can do a Y to just accept it. So trusting will always allow this action to happen. Doing N for no, that we maybe want to make changes or updates. Or T, once again, is that trust, right? So let's move over to that directory. I'm going to do a /save, and I'm just going to call this PRD. Awesome, it did .json at the end of it. And then let's go ahead and open up that folder. We were in documents, and we were also in projects, Amazon Q. Let's open up this big folder here. I'm going to go ahead and trust the projects folder. And here is our PRD that we just created. And now it's your turn to look through it and just make sure that everything lines up with what you want created. So we've got our overall application, we've got teacher functionality, control a question timer, start and stop, generate unique quiz codes, real time. I'm going to be surprised if it's actually able to generate all of this stuff, and maybe even in a one-shot prompt, phases and steps. So creating a backend, creating the folders and all of that stuff. And then we've got the front end inside of here. So all of this looks pretty good. Database setup for our SQLite, helper functions, core backend, socket events. If you're a brand new dev and you're seeing all of this stuff and you've never heard of these things, this is your time to prompt the AI or to go do additional research on all of these things that it's suggesting here and making sure that it is following the best practices or just what you want actually created out of this stuff. All right, we've got some different components that need to come through here. People need to be able to join the student quiz. So displaying the timer on like what happens on the student side versus the teacher side. And yeah, we've got some testing and polishing going on here. This all looks great. We've got a decent structure for it, development tips. We're going to keep it simple. So what I'm going to do here is actually jump back into my Amazon Q. I could just go into the file and delete it, but let's keep showing this off. Let's do -R, and it looks like it's bringing back the previous information that we have worked with before, which is really nice. So that is that resume that we are looking at, but we could have also loaded in the conversation from this JSON context as well. This is really great if you're going to another machine and you're still working in the same project. One thing that I might recommend here, especially as they add in additional models, I'll say /model, maybe switching to a different model, especially one with a bigger context window. And I will say review the quiz app implementation guide.md and make sure we are following best practices for this proof of concept. All right, and then I may also go to the socket IO site and just grab some documentation. I don't know which one to grab, but I'm curious if it's able to read the documentation of it. So I'll just paste that link in there as well and send that through. So just let it work. I may revert whatever the changes it makes because I'm using a lower model compared to a more advanced one with 4.0. But this is an example of if they had like a Gemini model, which has a huge context window versus some of the things that we're seeing with Anthropic, or even if they had like an OpenAI model inside of here, right? So it's good to play around with these and figure out what's the best one to validate the changes in the things that you are doing. So I'm going to press YY through here, and I should probably trust this process that it's doing, but you can see here that it's going out to the different sites using a curl command, going out to the site and getting the documentation to make sure that it's following best practices. Okay, so it says that it's making some changes. I'll be very curious on what it actually does. We've got like socket and socket server. I'm unsure if I want to take this or not. It was really just for an example. We can see that they're updating stuff. And this is where you, as the dev, will need to start figuring this stuff out. And some of you might be thinking, man, I'm spending a lot of time on this planning stuff and building out this PRD, reviewing this data. And you are correct where I'm spending a lot of time on it. But if you get your PRD correct, it'll make your life so much easier as you are going through. So I'm going to update this and clear my chat. So let's actually start building this out. Let me press Y because it's saying we're going to erase our conversation history. Are we sure about that? I'm going to say yes. And now I've got a clean context, so it's not going to remember anything that I've done before. Let's go to the models, switch to Claude Sonnet 4, and then say implement the PRD. And then, it's not actually a PRD, but I am just going to run this. So I'd be happy to implement this. Oh, so it literally doesn't know where to find it. Review the quiz app. I wonder if I can drag. Let's see if this will work. Ooh, yes. Okay. I didn't structure that very well, but we can drag in a different folder. Let's get the relative path, and I'm going to say review the implementation plan and get to work on it. And then just going to put the file that is in here. Ideally, it's going to read the implementation plan that exists, and there you have it. It is going ahead and reading that. And then now it's saying it's going to start implementing things, right? So it's going to make that directory and just start following through. I'm going to press T to trust because I don't want it to ask me every time it needs to make a directory. And now it's just going to start rolling through actually implementing this application. We can see the different folders starting to get created and all of this glorious code being written, not by me, but reviewed by me, of course. So while this is rolling through, I'm going to take a second to actually install the Amazon Q developer. Let's see if we have it. So here, the Amazon Q developer extension that we have over here. This is going to be more of a chat interface that we can utilize, and we can see it over here getting created. And now we need to sign in with that free builder ID that we've worked with. So I'm going to go ahead and click that while this is rolling. Probably continue. And it's going to open that up. And before I do that, it's going to create a new style of file. So I'm going to just go ahead and trust that with T. Cool. And I'm going to also allow the VS Code extension. Now we have a different style of interface with Amazon Q extension installed. And we can even see over here in the splash screen in the welcome that they have inline code suggestions and asking in the chat. And I think that's what we'll focus on, at least for this application. All of this is being generated. That's great. We're going to wait for it to finish. And let's take a look at the Amazon Q in your IDE to see what capabilities actually exist inside of there. So if you've got the install, all of these different IDEs are supported. And I'm sure there are going to be more that come through. Looking at these docs over here, you're able to chat about your code base in natural language. So this is really cool if you get dropped into a new code base and you have no idea what's going on. I mean, that happens all the time, right? join a new company or you get a GitHub repo and everything looks fine. You got the little README, but you want to understand something deeper. Now you can use these tools to really start to understand it on a deeper level and to have it read through and just bubble up the things that are most important for you. We've got some chat commands. So there's transform to update the code language to an entirely different project. I think that's really cool. And I could potentially try that out with some of our Salesforce projects that I've created. Maybe we'll do some future videos on that. Make sure to comment if you are interested in seeing those. We've got /dev. So this is what we've probably been doing, where it's implementing a plan that we've created. /test to generate some unit tests. Reviewed your code base for security vulnerabilities. This is great for all this code that we are generating, because then it's going to look at it again to understand if there are any issues. Do some /docs for README. Clear, once again, we'll clear that conversation, and /help. So you can see the interface over here. This is still running. Let's see what /help does over here. We have this option to turn on or off agentic coding. So basically if we wanted to make a ton of updates or not. And then we've got this /commands inside of here as well. Even though my code base isn't finished, I can start to chat with this and ask it what my code base is doing. So like, what does this code do? I can just send that off. I'm running 2 separate agents at the same time. We'll see if they end up conflicting with each other, but this chat is starting to read my code base, understand what it's actually doing, and then spitting that back out to me. So now I can review all of this stuff and see where I can make improvements on it. We also see that it's automatically created a GitHub repo for me, and all of that stuff is just great. I may want to move into this quiz app folder once this is done, so I'll continue to let that run. And this might have been a reason why we should have created this not in the integrated IDE, but just have done it in the terminal on its own. While that is rolling through and thinking, we can say something like, what is SQLite and why are we using it? Just sending that out and kind of exploring the code base even more. If you get dropped into a new code, is a great way of exploring this stuff. So SQLite, great for those local DBs, and there's no separate server or anything like that. Zero configuration. This is great when we are testing out this sort of proof of concept application. Then I can say something like, how can I start this app and test it? And this is kind of cool. It's telling us that we need to start our server. We also need to start the client application. So there's 2 folders inside of there, and then the different URLs that we need to go through. So once this is done working, we will spend the time to actually test this out. And it looks like we're hopefully getting close. I can see CSS is being generated and created in here. Ooh, and we can see that it is starting up here. I wonder how it's going to handle this terminal processing, trying to start the server and then trying to see if it's actually there. Ooh, and it looks like our ports are being used by some other stuff. So this is the really cool part, because you could have spent hours trying to figure out, oh, my ports are messed up. I need to configure them differently. And this is doing that entire process for you and making the necessary updates in the code base. All right, it says the server has been started on this port. So this is something that you'll run into potentially often. It might be hanging here, right? So it's executing this process, but the server is actually started. So we don't need it to just sit there with it started. What we want to do is actually these commands, which is really great that it showed us how to do this. I'm going to open up, let's split these over here. I'm opening up 2 terminals and I want to run these commands. All right, so I'm going to do cd quiz app, and then we've got client, and I want to stay there. So now I'm in that client folder, and I'm going to do cd quiz app server. It's perfect. And then we've got npm start for both of them. npm start, let's start the server, port 500, start the client side. This is ideally going to be port 300 as it's starting to roll through. And we got some stuff. I got some stuff popping up on the other screen. Really quickly, and we could probably ask Amazon Q to do this. I'm curious. Use GitHub or CLI to, I'm not even going to say CLI. I'm going to say commit these changes and see what it does. right, so while that's rolling, let me bring up my other screen here and let's go to localhost port 3000. Look at that. We have some sort of game. Unsure if it actually works, but let's do the create a quiz, do test, and look at this UI. What is my favorite color? And got green, red, yellow, and black. Oh, 30 seconds to do it. We can add another question. I'm going to create this quiz. How do started students, a join code. Okay, this is awesome. Let's see what this did. Couple things are happening here. I committed my node modules. Let's not do that, but it's updating server info in the README. I'll let this finish, but I'll probably tell it. This is something you generally don't want to do, right? You're committing your node modules. This is a ton of things that are coming through, and we've got a small commit. I think that's fine for right now. So really quickly, before I'm like super excited for the game, but I see this doing something that is fine, but there's definitely some improvements here. So let's not commit the node modules and just let that run. All right, so we've got our question. Let's see if we can just go back to localhost port 3000 student. I'm going to grab this, not the name, the join code, and I'm going to say, I am Wally, and hit join, waiting for the teacher to start. That is sick. All right, let's do one more. Let's stress it out and put that join code in. I'm going to just put Leo, and then everybody's ready. We've got our name up here, which is cool. And then I will start. And now these should be separate, right? Submitted answer waiting. And then I'm going to do green over here. 30 seconds is rolling. Active, end question. Oh, look at this. We've got our two connected students inside of here. And let's just end the question. Unsure if that actually worked or not. Oh, look. Awesome. This is awesome. And just for a first pass, right? This is really cool for this type of application. Decent enough UI. Of course, we can make adjustments as we go along, but this is really cool for just like 10 minutes of processing. And unsure what's going on back here. What are we doing? It's removing the node modules from it. And then it's trying to do all of that processing. So definitely not the way I would have done it, but just wanted to see the capabilities and see how smart it is. And some of this might not be on Amazon Q Developer. It could be on my prompt, right? It was potentially pretty vague, but we are, it's just some things that you have to figure out as you're going through. Look at all these logs that are getting created in my server and my clients. This is pretty much perfect. While it's figuring itself out over here, let's jump here and let me think of a new, what's a feature that we can add in, or can we potentially restart a quiz? So we can jump over into the extension over here. I'm going to do a /clear, right? Just to remove all that stuff that we previously had. Turn on agentic mode. I'm going to say /dev so that we know we're going to be generating code inside of this project. Let's go to dev mode. And then I'm going to say in the teacher view, once a question has started, give me the opportunity to restart the entire set of questions again. Maybe this can be once the quiz has ended, we can then restart and use those existing questions over again for the same students. So basically just implementing a restart functionality, give the opportunity to restart the entire quiz again. And then this can be done once the quiz has ended. We can then restart and use the existing questions over again for the same students. All right, so let's do this. And now it's going to start processing those down. So while all of that is happening, we're seeing that this is reviewing and going to start generating that new code for us, which is really awesome, right? We're able to implement features very rapidly, review them, and check to make sure any changes that we're getting done. So we can see this going through the application. What I should have done is also reference some of the areas in the code base that I thought would be helpful. So you can see here, we can use the @ symbol to add context, and we could have done like a file and there's most likely like a quiz, or are these going to be routes? So let's take a look at the different files that we have in here. It's probably one of these like apps or indexes we could have referenced as we are going through so that the AI knows exactly what to read. So it's going through and reading a couple of those. And then also while that's running, I like to do multi-threaded things. Let's generate some tests. And we'll say test the teacher quiz creation. Let's just run that. And I'm going to do one more. Let's check out the docs as well. Generate the documentation. We want to, do we want readmes for each of these? We do have them. So maybe let's go ahead and update the existing readmes. AI providers are going to hate me because I'm just sending these things through. Let's take a look at the app side of things. And we've got the teacher dashboard. So let's test out the teacher dashboard. And I'm going to come back in here and say, because I think it needs some more context. So I'll do /tests, and then we'll add some context for it. And then let's write some tests for this context window. And I'm just going to run it. It's able to know the file that I'm working in and starting to write tests for that, which is really nice. And of course, we'll go ahead and review it. Finally, with this extension, right, we have made some changes. We can go through and review what is being done. We've got a socket to reset our quiz and reset it for everybody in here. We can see on the teacher dashboard, we can also reset things, and it has most likely added a button and stuff like that there. So I'm going to accept all of these changes because that looks great. This also created a test, which we could add into our testing section, and then our documentation. It looks like here, it's walking us through this kind of wizard to let us know where our code is. So let's make sure that it is in there and then hit yes. So it's scanning all of the files in there, which is really nice, right? A really interesting way for us to walk through the different code base that we're working on. Let's finally check out or try this again. Start this. I think we've already ended, didn't we? I did not answer in time, and I'm not seeing, we might need to restart our servers. So let's close this out, starting development server. So this is looking good. Everything's disconnected and restarted. And then this one also looks like it is restarted on the client side. So let's see what we've got here. And we've got a restart quiz button. So this is what we wanted to add in here. And I'm just going to refresh for these users to see what happens, waiting for this teacher to start. Going to start these or see if the end time has come through. So that's kind of nice. No answer submitted. So it already knows, even though these numbers are not accurate. And then we can restart our quiz and then start it over again. So that's perfect, right? In case you mess up, you can go through there, got our timer, and then we can end. This is perfect for the student side. They're seeing the questions they got. And then for the final quiz complete, the final results, check the console for details. Of course, we can build out like a dashboard as a next phase as well. Really cool stuff. And this is just an overview of Amazon Q Developer, really just my first impressions of what it can do. And we got really far in a short amount of time. So we were able to actually build out this application and get something functioning and working and potentially see if people like it. We're able to rapidly prototype, building out that PRD and getting these specifications to what we wanted for this proof of concept. Remember that planning phase is going to be one of the most important things that you can do when using AI to build out your projects. You saw that it didn't take long once we spent that time up front with the planning. And Amazon Q Developer was great at looking at enabling or adding different features to our application, either using the CLI or using the VS Code extension. Both are great options depending on your comfort level with the different tools that are available. This tool is really powerful. I'll definitely be giving it a try in many different areas, seeing how it can integrate with maybe some GitHub workflows or just other applications that I am building out. So if you haven't checked it out, definitely head over to the AWS site, links down below, and get started with a free builder ID so that you can start building out these cool applications. A huge thanks to AWS for sponsoring this video and creating Amazon Q Developer. This tool is really powerful and definitely will help you move faster and debug a lot smarter. I'm Walters954. Thanks so much for watching, and I believe in you.